What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where we talk about the adaptations from comic books into streaming shows and movies. I'm here with my good friend Brian, who did happen to rank all the episodes of X-Men 97, and I totally forgot to.
You're the one that suggested it. Of course I did it.
I know. What the fuck am I doing?
You haven't ranked things in a long time, so maybe you just forgot.
Yes. It's been a very busy week, too, but I think after you do your ranking, I can do mine. Okay. We are here now at the finale of this show, and so Brian and I might cry for a lot of this recording.
Yes.
But were you satisfied with the finale?
100%. This is the best thing on Disney Plus.
Hell yeah. Okay. So let's jump into it. All right. So then turn. Kind of a cliche song to hear when you are watching something that's set in the 70s, right?
Yes.
But I was sort of like, I wouldn't say shocked, but I was like, oh, whoa, they're playing like real music in this.
Yeah, and they've done that before in the show. So it's interesting. The song choices are definitely a little, like not what you'd expect, I guess.
Yeah,
but I think they worked. And I guess it's just weird when you hear real music in an animated show. Like for some reason, it's just, I guess you don't see it very often.
Yeah, I know that like they played Ace of Base when they were in, I was gonna say Krakoa, but in Genosha.
Yep.
Right.
And then there was the Purple People Eater song too.
Yeah.
And there was another one that I can't remember earlier on.
That was weird. Yeah, I had to Google because I couldn't remember. I was like, wait, which song did they play? And then I had to Google this song by the Byrds. But I was going to ask you, do they usually have real songs in other Marvel animated shows?
I don't think they. I don't recall ever hearing licensed music in animated shows. Period. Like in anything. I feel like it's like something that you just don't. They just don't normally do. Maybe. Generally speaking, budgets are smaller for animated shows, and music licensing costs a lot. So that's probably why you don't see it as often.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I know that like kind of the more adult cartoons like Rick and Morty and like The Simpsons and Family Guy, like they've all kind of had songs. Like I always remember like the season 2 finale of Rick and Morty, they played Hurt by Nine Inch Nails. I was like, oh my God,
Oh, it was the Johnny Cash version, wasn't it?
I think it was the regular one, the Trent Reznor one. Okay. We'll have to look that up too. Yeah. But anyway, so they've played some interesting songs in this show, and it's a good way to like set the tone for this feeling of like Magneto and Professor X being around. I would assume it's like Vietnam that they're together, so it's like the 60s,
something like that.
Yeah, because I mean they're definitely going with the idea that Magneto was in the Holocaust and he would be of age. Like it matches up with X-Men First Class.
Yeah, it makes sense because this show takes place in 97. Like everyone seems to be fairly age appropriate.
Right.
But when you start looking at the comics today, it's like, whoa, wait a second.
Yeah. How old would they be? Yeah, they kind of like wave their hand at Magneto's age and Professor.
Well, yeah, like he's gotten new bodies like 4 times and he's been rejuvenated 2 times. They always find some way to make that work.
Yes. And so did you think that was just a flashback, or did you think they were in his mind when that
totally thought it was a flashback? 100%. I'm like, oh wow, they're going to show this, and then we see. I think the first indication was we see the boat outside the window there, which has Rogue on it and Polaris and Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, kind of a little shadowed in the background.
Yes. Yeah, I really love that detail because you don't really see them. Polaris kind of stands out because their costume is pretty bright. I mean, I know that Scarlet Witch's costume and Quicksilver's costumes are bright too, but she stood out the most because she's legitimately Magneto's kid.
Yes, and however, we don't know what the show will if the show will kind of adopt the same stance they took in the comics, where like it was like the High Evolutionary did something to them and they're Inhumans or whatever the hell it is. I don't even know.
Yeah, I kind of hate that they changed Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, like their genetics or whatever.
They had to make the Inhumans cool because they didn't have the X-Men license at the time for movies. And they failed miserably. And what are we talking about these days? What are we excited about? X-Men.
Take that, Ike Perlmutter. So, and hopefully they'll retcon it and make them mutants again at some point, and Magneto's children.
Yeah.
But getting back to another child of a famous X-Men character, we have Cable, who essentially, like, it's implied that he killed Jean Grey.
Yeah. So they kind of imply in the previous episode, well, while the X-Men or the blue team is fighting Magneto, that the gold team needs more time and they were struggling or something like that, but they don't show it. That's something that not normally happens, I guess. Like, they usually will show you rather than tell you what happens.
Yeah.
So here, they just flat out get defeated. Everyone's captured, and Jean is at the bottom of a lake. And the last we saw them was Jean and Cable kind of facing off with some telekinetic blasts at each other. So it does look like Sinister Cable kind of prevailed, and then that's where we go from there.
Yeah, and kind of a disturbing image. You just see Jean's hair under the water waving,
Yeah.
So I mean, there's more than that for disturbing images. Once Cable is like subdued, Bastion eventually comes over and like rips off Cable's arm and beats him with it.
Yep.
And then pretty soon after that, they're able to get the collar on Bastion and disconnect him from all the Sentinels. But then Jean comes out of the water as the Phoenix. What'd you think of that?
Oh, no. Bastion destroys the collar. Then Jean comes out and reforms the collar and puts it on his head. And this is the thing I was confused about. Is like, why didn't he just take it off? Like, why was he wearing it the whole time?
Yeah. It was a little clunky with that whole sequence. And honestly, like, I'm not a big fan of them using Jean all the time as the Phoenix to kind of like save the day,
Yeah, it does. I mean, there are so many Phoenix stories and retellings of the Phoenix, and they try to kind of recapture that magic because it is one of the best X-Men stories to date. Still, 30 years later, or 40 years later. Oh gosh, is it 50 years later?
I think it's 80s, right?
80s was Dark Phoenix? Yeah. Okay. So 40 years.
40
later.
plus. Yeah.
40 years-ish.
Yeah.
And they always kind of want to revisit that magic, but it still sort of works here because they haven't done, and then they did kind of do the main stuff already. So I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. It is too much. It's a little much to have it come bail them out every time. And it's funny because it bails them out and then says, "Oh, I'm great now. I'm going to leave."
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like a little too quick of a resolution on it, I guess.
Right, exactly. I like when there's like a Deus Ex Machina, but then it becomes a danger as well. Like, oh, the Phoenix saved us, but now the Phoenix is the threat. We have to deal with that. Like, I like that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that I probably wouldn't have been bothered by it as much, but I was just in the middle of reading like the kind of the end of the Krakoan era, and there's a lot of Phoenix stuff with Jean after she dies and that too. So I was just like, okay, here she comes back to life again thanks to this Phoenix. Like, she's never gonna die.
And that's apparently where she is in the next age of X-Men. She's in space as the Phoenix. So
okay. Well, that's something I'm gonna read pretty soon. I'm almost done with the Krakoan stuff, but Mr. Sinister has not been around in the Krakoan era for a while now. In this show, he gets his comeuppance, wouldn't you say?
Yes. So what does Phoenix do it to him?
Yes.
I mean, she kind of has to, right?
Yeah.
He kind of just undoes all the mutant DNA tampering that he's done to himself, and then he becomes a shriveled old man, and then Morpheus like rubs in his face by showing him what he looks like.
Yeah.
He asked for it, I guess, though.
Yeah, it's this great moment where Sinister's like, "What's my face is different," or something like it's different, and then Morph makes the same ugly old man face, and he's like, "It looks the same as always." Great stuff.
Yeah. And then he runs off, and they let him go.
Yes. So we've already talked about this last episode, but this was kind of a combination of Operation Zero Tolerance and then also Fatal Attractions. In Fatal Attractions, there's a point when they shoot up missiles at Asteroid M because Magneto pretty much did what he did in this as well. In the comic, Magneto basically knocks out all the missiles too. Before we get to that point, though, we have this sequence where there's like 15 Marvel superhero cameos.
So many.
Yeah. So you want to go ahead and just list them off?
Oh my god! So it was Cloak and Dagger and Daredevil, and we got Iron Man in addition to Captain America. We got Doctor Strange doing surgery with his magic. We saw Psylocke with Alpha Flight.
Yeah, it's just random. Yeah.
Well, I was like, oh, there's Puck and Sasquatch and Psylocke.
Yeah.
What else do we see? We
Black Panther.
It's T'Chaka Black Panther, which is
right.
Thing. And then we also see Peter Parker and Mary Jane, which my understanding is I didn't finish that series either, but that's actually a resolution to the storyline that was kind of left hanging, that she was kind of like lost in space or something, in alternate realities or something like that. Mm-hmm. And this kind of shows that he eventually found her and brought her home. So that was never resolved before. So that's a really interesting story point to have in this little cameo that solves that old show as well.
Yes. I like that one moment in the show because they're looking at it like a row of TVs in a electronics store. And that's like definitely of its time, right? Because if this was going on right now, everyone would be like looking at their phones like this versus looking at it on a TV, right? Yep. So yeah, there's all these crazy cameos. That is the great point that it's T'Chaka versus T'Challa. He makes this one line, which when I heard it, I was like, what the fuck did he just say? Like, it was kind of confusing. He said something like, let's hope that our descendants, like, they read their Bibles as much as they read the history books, or so. He says something about Bibles and history books.
Yeah, I was kind of like more stunned. I'm like, oh my god, it's Black Panther, but it's T'Chaka.
Yeah.
Really, he does say something about that, and it's kind of just he's doubtful about humanity in a way, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds on brand for Black Panther. So, and I think we see the Fantastic Four at one point too.
Did we?
It's like real quick and sudden, and they're like doing something. There's some kind of action. Like I looked away from the screen for like a minute, and I was like, "Wait a minute! Did the fucking Fantastic Four show up on Asteroid M?" But I remember I saw Reed. Hell, okay, Reed's there.
Yeah, you know what? I think I do remember seeing Reed. I don't think they show up at Asteroid M, but there's somewhere.
Yeah, they don't show up at Asteroid M because like the X-Men totally solved that whole situation themselves.
Yeah.
So let's get up to that part with the blue team, right? So the very last shot of the last episode is that shot from Magneto ripping the adamantium skeleton from Wolverine's body. Didn't you kind of feel like Wolverine wasn't as fucked up looking as he was in the comic?
Yeah, I mean, there is less detail in this animation style. So this still is a 3D animation style with like a cell shade over it. A lot of people, people have commented on they don't like how the characters look in this. Whatever, it's fine. But I get why it looks less detailed, honestly.
Well, did you think it was sort of a like censoring kind of issue? Because in the comics, when Wolverine has his adamantium pulled out, I'm pretty sure it's like all like protruding out of his body and stuff. It's not like Magneto rips it out and like puts it into a ball. It's just like he almost looks like a human pincushion where like the adamantium's just like sticking out of him. Yeah,
I mean, the thing about animating something like that in detail, and is imagine how much work it would be, I guess. And I think they do an adequate job here. Like they took the exact position of his body from the panel and they animated it in a way. So I didn't have any issue with it. I mean, it's still an animated cartoon. It's a lot of work that goes into these things. I'm fine with things like that.
Yeah, it kind of cracks me up because when I remember watching the original cartoon and like Sabretooth slices Wolverine at one point, and like Wolverine takes like a long time to heal. He's like walking around with bandages and stuff after Sabretooth does that to him in the beginning of the show.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that, like, as a kid, I always just kind of thought Wolverine has claws, and that's his power. I didn't realize the healing thing. But in the comics, it's always like he's just getting shot in the fucking head, and his face is getting sliced
it always wasn't like that, though. Like, he just kind of, like, healed faster and could do things and stuff. Yeah. But, like, I particularly remember, like, New X-Men in particular. Like he gets like melted down to his bones and he regenerates. That was a clear jump in the level of power that regeneration had.
Yes. Oh yeah. In Ultimate X-Men, he like gets run over by a truck, and everyone kind of goes like, "Oh," because it's like so gross that what happens to him.
The Hulk rips him in two pieces, throws him across over a mountain, and he lives.
You know what's funny? This is totally like a little side tangent that's just for you and me, but like Marvel has this event coming out called Blood Hunt, and they have these special issues that are like, oh, this more like R-rated kind of Marvel comic. And I'm like, what about all the fucking Wolverine and X-Force comics that have been coming out from the Krakoan era? Like they do horrible shit in those books,
I guess this is different because those are like this is being marketed as like a big main event book that everybody should pick up no matter what your interest is.
Yeah,
of course I bought it. I didn't even, my store didn't have the graphic version. They only had the regular. I think I was there a week late though when it came out. So
okay, yeah. Hopefully, I'll eventually get it when it comes on Marvel Unlimited. But yeah, Marvel in the comics, just with like Immortal Hulk and the stuff they do in Ghost Rider, there's this horrible things. Yeah. But bringing it back to the show, last episode, Rogan and Roberto, went on Magneto's side, but then in this episode, they kind of just get right back into the swing of being X-Men right away. Did you think that was too quick?
No, I think Magneto crosses the line with, I mean, even before Wolverine, honestly, and I think like that once he rips the adamantium out of Wolverine, it's like, okay, maybe we made a mistake here.
I made a terrible mistake. Yeah, so they come back and Roberto has this moment where like Jubilee falls out of Asteroid M and he flies out and catches her, and so they seem to kind of mended things back together. Yeah. And then all this is going on, and Bastion comes back into power after they, turned him off. He goes up to Asteroid M himself and just takes on the X-Men and Magneto just by himself. Did you like what ended up happening to Bastion? Is that kind of what you expected to happen with him?
Yeah, because he's the kind of person that's not going to compromise his beliefs, and the only way it was either someone was going to have to kill him or he was going to have to die in an explosion because he wouldn't accept help from the other side. Like he was not going to compromise.
Yeah. And so I think it's like the United Nations send up nukes, not just America, like just a bunch of countries send up nukes, and they go hit Asteroid M. And Asteroid M starts falling, and it's falling apart. And then essentially all the X-Men are like in like a bubble, like they're safe. But then, he essentially gets pulled back and just like gets obliterated in the explosion.
Yeah, and Cyclops is offering like, reach out, we'll help you, whatever, doesn't matter. Yeah. And then he's won't accept the help. And
yeah. And you know what? There's actually a really great moment too. I forgot to mention where like Cyclops basically says to Bastion, "We're not going to fight you."
Yeah.
It's like it's offering peace. Like he's kind of following Xavier's dream there.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree with that. It was a nice scene there. I also can't. Again, I mean, this is the opposite of peace here, but I love the giant, X-Men versus Street Fighter kind of Marvel vs. Capcom optic blast that he does, the really wide beam.
Oh yeah, in their plan to like stop the asteroid from hitting the Earth.
No, he does it against Bastion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, don't they have this kind of moment where they're both like shooting at each other simultaneously too? Yep. Yeah. Okay. There's so much that happens in that last episode. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was an extended episode too. It was like a little over 40 minutes, I think. So.
Yeah. And even though Cyclops is blasting away, we actually do get to see Cyclops' eyes in this episode.
Yes. That was the telepathic sequence, right?
With Cable.
That this episode, or was this the previous episode? Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, like what happened it's in this episode is that, Jean and Scott reach out to Cable, who's kind of like recovering, and then they go to say goodbye to him, basically.
Yeah.
So, did you kind of tear up at that moment, or?
Of course, yeah. I don't know, anything with any family things like that, especially X-Men stuff, always gets me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because the way they set up to deliver, he's like, I made this promise to not be like my father. And then Cable's like, what do you mean by that? And he says to not say goodbye. He was gonna make sure he would say goodbye.
Yeah, I thought it was just, I'm not gonna abandon you, but he was like, oh, I
am abandoning you. See you later, sucker. Twice now in your life.
Yeah.
You know? So you think that like pretty much what happened with Magneto and Professor X is going to lead to Onslaught, right?
I thought that was what it was going to be teased for the next season, but I don't think so. I think they're putting a slight pause on it, maybe.
Yeah, agreed.
I think it's got to come back. It's probably the best way to have Magneto come back, even though he's still around. You know, but to have a big Magneto story, that's going to be the way to go.
Yeah. What did you think of that sequence where like Magneto's essentially like drowning in his grief, and you know Professor X is there saying that he's just always going to be there for him? What'd you think of that sequence?
I thought they were about to make out.
Oh, Charles. Yeah. Magnus.
But yeah, no, they were talking like that almost though. You know, they have a very deep bond. So I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised honestly. But
yeah, they were really close.
Were real close.
Right. Their faces were like this, and like they were kind of hugging in the water. They just could have just turned. Yeah. I can touch you, but I don't know. But Magneto, you know, does end up helping save the day. It's kind of like Vegeta showing up in one of the Dragon Ball Z sagas. But I was going to say that when the asteroid blows up, we have like a little epilogue sequence, and I think that the newscaster says the X-Men have been missing since E-Day. Did I hear that wrong?
I don't remember hearing E-Day. I did hear the X-Men are missing. I can understand why they would call it E-Day, I suppose.
Okay, but why?
E-Day. Evolution. I don't know. That's kind of what I got out of it, but maybe I'm wrong.
So I thought a few things. I was thinking like, is E-Day when the Sentinel attacks Genosha and it's like Extinction Day? You know?
No, I think they're referencing the asteroid M falling down. Like I think there's a time jump between the asteroid M blipping out of existence and that news report.
Okay. Because I was thinking maybe I just misheard it, and maybe they said B-Day, and it could be for like Bastion, right?
Maybe. Yeah, I don't particularly remember. I do remember the news report you're talking about, but I don't remember any particular letter being used.
Yeah. So if y'all are watching and you're like, dudes, I know what the fuck they said, tell us in the comments what day it was. But essentially, the asteroid disappears. And then the X-Men are like scattered throughout time. But really, it's just like the majority of them are in one spot, and then Scott and Jean are in another.
And 3 are unaccounted for.
Okay, so tell me the 3 that are unaccounted for.
That would be Wolverine, Morph, and Storm.
Wolverine.
They didn't show them afterwards.
Okay, that's interesting. Any idea where you think they might go?
No, I have no idea whatsoever. I feel like if it would be weird if they were just with one of the other teams. They just weren't on screen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I don't know what they would do and what relevance it would have to the storyline, because it looks like they're doing a past, present, future of all of that Apocalypse next season.
Yeah. Do you think that it's possible that the 3 of them might be in Australia? Because like at one point in the 80s, it's believed that all the X-Men are dead, but they're actually like in Australia.
Yeah, that's the vibe I got from this whole idea, was that this was a riff on that. I don't know, because like Wolverine's clearly hurting and he needs to recover, so it's possible there's somewhere. I mean, I feel like he's got to be somewhere where he can rest, I guess.
Yeah. In the comics, they had him like in this like intense like healing machine and stuff that was like helping him because he was just gonna die. You know? So I was like kind of surprised that they just had a respirator on him or whatever. And then of course,
that was a very temporary measure as they're escaping a exploding asteroid.
Yeah. And I didn't make a note for this, but I just wanted to point out too that Bo DeMeo said that scene with Morph pretending to be Jean Grey was essentially like him showing his like love for Wolverine.
Yeah, he said there was it was him speaking out his one-sided feelings for Wolverine there. So
his unrequited love. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, good stuff. I mean, just excellent all around. So you want to talk about where they end up in time, the people that we do know?
Yeah. So I think they show the past first. So that's we have Professor X, Magneto, Rogue, and Nightcrawler there at least, and they're in Egypt in 3,000 years ago, and there's some people fighting, and one of the people they're fighting against is in Sabanor. So young Apocalypse there.
Well, the way they do it is they show them in the past, and there's somebody fighting. But then they also show Scott and Jean in the future at the same time. The very last shot is En Sabanor Apocalypse.
Yes,
that's the last shot.
Well, you see him fighting, but he's got a mask on his face.
Right. Yeah, he's got like a little like
shawl. And you see the little blue protruding out a little bit.
Right. And there's an interesting. So there's a guy that has a channel. His name's Rob, and it's called Comics Explained, I think. And I've mentioned him on this channel before.
Yeah,
he did a video where he's talking about where he thinks the show is going to go, and he talks about Ascani and Apocalypse and Cable and all that kind of shit. He was saying, who displaced the X-Men through time? Do you have any guess yourself?
I do not.
He was saying that it could very well be Kang.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
Because Kang is very much connected to Apocalypse. Like one of the versions of Kang is like Rama Tut, and that character and Apocalypse are connected, That
would be interesting. And that would be a way for, I don't know, Marvel to still do a Kang storyline without Jonathan Majors.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think that like Kang's completely gone from the MCU too.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah. I think they're gonna do like a switcheroo, like, oh, it was someone else all along. It was the real threat. Kinda.
Right. And Doctor Doom, a lot of people think. So we see Scott and Jean too, and they're in the future. And I was actually really, really happy about this because I was worried that it was gonna be that like Cable wasn't from his like specific Cable future, but like they're in that specific Cable future.
Yes, they definitely are. And we see Mother Ascani and we see young Nathan. And Mother Ascani, first of all, is an older Rachel Gray.
Mm-hmm.
And also is apparently voiced by Gates McFadden.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I think she was He-Man's mom on the most recent.
Yeah, she replaced Alicia Silverstone?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Something like that,
That's quite a transition to go from Alicia Silverstone to Gates McFadden.
Yeah.
So, that's cool. I didn't realize that Dr. Crusher was Mother Ascani. So, and then, of course, we see Cable, too.
You see young Nathan.
Yeah. So, we're definitely going to get some strife and stuff next season then, too.
Yeah, totally. And I wonder, too, if, when Cyclops and Jean are giving that little goodbye speech, I wonder if, obviously, Cable must have had this memory, right?
Yeah.
Being in the future at some point. I'm surprised he hasn't mentioned it earlier, or maybe that kind of messes up time.
Yeah. Well,
you know what? That's something we didn't mention too. They actually asked Cable how many times he's tried to fix. He's gone in the past to try and fix this, and he says like 200 times.
Yeah, it's miserable. Yeah. In the comics that some of these stories are based on, there's the I think it's called The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, and that's when they're in the future, but they don't use their real names when they're in the future. They call themselves Slim and Red.
Okay. Yeah, I think I used to have one of those issues, like physically.
Yeah, the artwork was real interesting. Yeah. So then, like we were saying before, you do see N7 at the very end, and I think the very last line of the show is Beast going like, "Oh my," right?
Something like that. Yeah.
When he sees N7 they're like they know it's Apocalypse. He's got the fucking mouth thing, like you said.
Yeah.
But that guy Rob was saying that you do see some kind of crazy structure in that ancient Egypt, and he's saying that that's like Kang's ship or something, or that's like a Kang thing.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be surprising, but I think that would be good to see.
Yeah, fuck yeah. All right, well, do you want to fucking go into our rankings then?
No, we don't. We're not done.
We're not done.
We didn't talk about the. Well, first of all, we got to talk about Forge and him building a new X-Men team with Bishop.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. Do it.
There's a point where it feels like Bishop's in that same not Bishop Forge is in that same lab where there's usually a Wolverine skeleton, but it's the present day.
Yes.
And there's a whole bunch of X-Men photos on the wall there. Most of them, it kind of reminiscent of the famous Days of Future Past cover, where it's just like apprehended or missing or whatever, slain. And there's a bunch of people there that are not crossed out or anything like that. So we see like Colossus, we see Magic, we see Kitty Pryde, we see Emma Frost. Exodus was on there, and Dust.
Oh yeah, Dust
was a little bit out of left field. So my gut here is that they're gonna try and have like another. They're gonna have another team, kind of standing in the present day. While the other X-Men are in the past and the future.
Was Exodus ever on the original cartoon?
I don't think so.
Yeah. He's a pretty big deal in the Krakoan era.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I actually would really love Magic to be on this show because Magic's actually one of my favorite characters. I don't know if she'd be in my top 10 of X-Men, but she might actually.
She's close for me. I didn't like what they did with her in Realm
of X. Yep.
Yeah, that was like a weird turn, but like before that, like I guess when she started popping up with
Scott
Schism area with on Cyclops' team, I started to notice more, and I think they have a ways to go before they can get to that version of the character. But I'm totally excited to have Colossus around and Kitty and Emma. That would be fantastic, and I hope they become big parts of the show next season. And then the last thing we have to talk about was the stinger at the very end with Apocalypse. You didn't see this?
What?
Oh, Apocalypse was in present day on Genosha, and he said something about all the death and suffering and whatever. And he puts his hand in the ground. He picks up a Queen of Hearts card.
What?
So, which is basically saying that he's going to bring Gambit back as the Horseman of Death, just like in the comics. How did you not see that?
Are you making that up?
No.
I like fast forwarded the thing so that it would like show me if there was anything at the
full credits. Like they did the thing with like the little like Xavier files, and then they cut right to it before the full credits.
Oh shit!
Oh yeah, it's a great line. Yeah, no, you got to go back and watch it.
I'm gonna do that right after we're done recording.
Yeah.
All right. Holy shit. Okay. So are we doing the ranking or no?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. I want to hear your ranking.
So yeah, I'll start at the bottom, and we kind of mentioned this last week, but the weakest episode here, and it's not that it's bad, is episode 4, Montendo, Life Death Part 1. It just felt like fillery, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And while I do like the Life Death stuff part, I mean, I have that episode 6, Life Death Part 2, as the second lowest ranked one. Good episode, but I just had to rank them somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, I understand.
After that, I have Fire Made Flesh, which was the episode with Madeline Pryor and the whole kind of accelerated Inferno. I really appreciated the kind of horror-esque visuals in this one there, but I guess the fact that they sped through that whole storyline was a little much.
Yeah, agreed.
But still, it was great. After that, I had the first episode, To Me, My X-Men. Just great overall setup here. We didn't quite know what we were getting, but we know we were excited about it.
Yeah.
After that, I have Bright Eyes, which is the one right before the finale. Deals a lot with grief and a lot of stuff with that, and I thought it was really interesting. We get the first look at the Prime Sentinel. I have that there. Number 5, I have episode 2, Mutant Liberation Begins. And really, I have this because of Magneto's speech at the end of this episode. That was like a huge moment in the series for me.
Yeah.
And then it really was fantastic foreshadowing for what happens later on. And then
there's many good speeches in this season.
And then here, 4, 3, and 2, I have reverse order of the finale here. So part 3 is 4, part 2 is 3, part 1 is 2. I don't know why I put it in that order. I feel like I had the most excitement level after the first one.
Yeah.
The second one, I could probably argue, is extremely close. And this one is good too. They're all very close. It's very hard to mix those up. So I just put them in the reverse order of it. I don't know why. And then at number 1, to no one's surprise, is Remember It. This is like an episode. Like people will remember this episode. It's fantastic. Pretty flawless, honestly. And a real highlight the highlight of this fantastic show.
Shit, yeah. Okay. Really good points. And here's the thing. I told you to go first because I didn't have my own ranking. But then I was like, is he pretty much going to put them in the exact same order I would? And you did. So
yes!
It's like, I don't, yeah. When you're ranking something like this, it's not like there's really this clearly obvious bad one or there's multiple subpar episodes. They're all really great. It's kind of hard. You know, the only one that kind of stands out like above the rest is that Remember It one, which is like extra amazing, you know. And I think one of the reasons why it affected us so much is because we didn't realize they were going to go to that level. But then once you realize they can go to that level, then you kind of have an awareness. So it's not as like mind blowing. You know what I'm saying?
It's not shocking when they do other things later on. Like it was still shocking that Wolverine stabs Magneto. You actually see a claw go through him, and then he rips the adamantium out. But nothing was going to prepare you for, you know, the next a recontinuation of a kid show to kill one of our favorite characters, you know?
Yes. After they do this fucking new X-Men slaughter of Genosha.
Yeah.
Which Genosha is like this weird kind of proto Krakoa too. So it's just like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's X-Men 97 in the bag. Probably one of my favorite things that we've covered on this channel, if not the favorite thing that we've covered on this channel.
Yeah, it's gonna be like this is the show, you know, the level of excitement I have for the show is like I would wake up and watch it. You know, Wednesday morning I would wake up and watch it before work and all that. I don't know what else is going to come out this year that I'm going to feel like that, but we'll see.
Yeah, ditto. Yeah. Good point. So in between conversations, we were talking about like what our schedule would look like. We were basically saying, so that you guys know, because now X-Men's done, we were saying we were going to do 2 Fallout episodes together next week so we could wrap up Fallout. Then we're going to do Furiosa the next week. And then
what Star Wars?
Oh, the Acolyte. Yes, thank you. Acolyte. Yes.
We also said we wanted to put in God, what was it? It's not Tales of the Jedi. It's
Tales of the Empire.
Tales of the Empire or Tales of the Dark Side or something.
No, it's Tales of the Empire. Yeah.
Tales of the Empire. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
I've already watched that.
Oh, you have? Oh, I haven't yet.
Yeah. I watched it like maybe like a week ago or more.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, it's been a real fucking pleasure. And if you guys have not subscribed, please do. Brian and I are here every week talking about all these crazy, awesome adaptations and some shitty ones too. But let's get some more awesome ones.